All right, everybody can hear us again? You good? Somebody give me a thumbs up if you can. Okay, all right. I'm going to turn it over to Coach for opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Good morning. Kind of nice to get back in a routine that we should be in. Seems somewhat normal now. And again, as we're all finding out in Big Ten play, the next one's just as tough as the last one. So felt good about the Iowa game. I thought we did some really, really positive things. Going back, I was really pleased with Jacob Grandison, his activity, his effectiveness on the glass. And then I thought that we've all talked about Trent's kind of explosion on the offensive side, but the job he did defensively on Bohannon was really, really good, really sound. And, now it's on to Indiana, a team that is tremendous defensively. They're playing better, in my opinion. Franklin hurt us in the first game. We've got to do a better job on him. We all know that Trace is a very gifted player. He's been off the chart in the last 5 games, getting to the foul line. And then we've seen, Fennessy just have an eruption at Iowa the other night with his productivity. So a very good basketball team that's tremendous defensively, and we're going to have to be on our game to beat them.
Brad, do you expect Indiana to crash the offensive glass?
Yes and no. That's a bad answer. They will send a couple of guys for sure. I think that this was our second lowest possession game of the year. That they'll work really hard to keep us out of transition. We had 28 points under 7 seconds against Iowa, 21 of those coming in the first half. So, I think that that's something that not just Indiana, but a lot of teams try to take away from us. So they'll send a couple, but I would expect them to have a good number of guys back as well. And
is Jacob's rebounding one of the keys to moving him into the starting lineup?
Yeah, his activity. There's no doubt. He was like I said many times, he was a pain in the butt last year trying to keep him off the glass. He's a hard block out. He goes every single time. I think his going rate is about 90%, in his last 7 games in terms of going to the glass. So he's a frequent goer to the glass, and that allows him to get a lot.
Thanks.
Right, on paper, you're at the halfway point of the Big Ten season, but yet it feels later in the season. Maybe it's because of the postponements or just because we're turning the calendar to February. So where do you go from here? The team's playing at a high level, knowing you want to be peaking as you get towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you always feel like that there's your best basketball in front of you, and we're no different. Obviously, we'd be 12 games in had there not been the postponements, which is, unique all throughout the country, not just to our league. But again, it's we know that there's going to be games coming fast and furious, and we want to be playing our best. And every day we get a preparation and practice is important, because we know we're not going to have a lot of them coming ahead. So one day at a time. And, we try not to get too far ahead because of COVID, and yet stay really focused on the next day of practice and the next game.
Depending how or if the postponements get made up, it could be 7 of your last 10 on the road. Any thoughts on that?
It is what it is, Scott. I mean, we can't control the fact that the 2 games we lost were road games. It just was coincidence that way. It's not like playing on the road this year is as difficult a task as maybe it's been in the past with no crowds. But it's not even concerned with it, to be honest.
Thanks.
Brett, how do things change on a second play, if they do at all? And does it matter if you win or lose on that in terms of making adjustments?
No, they'll change. They'll be dialed into some things that we hurt them with, and vice versa. And, I know there's some areas that we feel like we can take advantage of them. And I'm sure Arch has got the same thing after seeing them the first time. They're Galloway has been out, not in the lineup. They've been starting Fennessy. And again, they've been playing well. Franklin's, playing with a lot of freedom, and then they've seen a really a surge, in my opinion, in terms of Hunter off the bench and his productivity, and he's playing a lot looser, shooting the heck out of the ball. So, there's all kinds of adjustments on both sides.
And then if we expect a lower pace game, like I think a lot of us do, how much more does execution play a part in that if you have less possessions?
Yeah, and you find easy possessions, and you have to take care of the ball, value the basketball. That was the one thing I didn't like in our Iowa game. But again, it's they're a little more up tempo at home. They play a little faster at home. They're sneaky good in transition. Durham's electric in transition. So, we can't fall asleep and expect just a, walk it up game, but we're always going to take our opportunities when they're there. And if it's not, and the possessions are in the 60s, then we've got to learn to fight for every possession, every loose ball, every offensive rebound, and then execute on the offensive end.
Thanks.
Coach, I know you talked the other day about kind of the year of the big man in the Big Ten. How would you evaluate Kofi's defense so far? It looks like he's really improved about not getting silly fouls and getting as much foul trouble. How has his defense improved from his freshman year?
Well, it's grown just in the simple fact that Jim, we can do different things with him. We can put him at different levels in the ball screen coverage. He's moving his feet better. He's much more sound in his calls. There's a lot of responsibility on those bigs to make the ball screen calls and the coverages, and he's very comfortable in that. That's helped him. So yeah, he's very seldom out of position. He first 3, 4, 5 games of the year weren't great. And now he's been really solid since that point.
As we start to cover high school basketball games again, how do you recruit the kids in Illinois? Do you watch live streams? Do you assign live streams to games to watch, or are you sitting in front of a computer watching games now? Yeah,
that's one of the things that it's our only resource is live streaming or getting something back off YouTube later or whatever the site may be, and watching games. And sometimes it doesn't work where we can watch a game live because of this, but we have the ability to go back and watch it. And I can say this: it's not my favorite way to recruit and evaluate, but right now it's what we have. And we're excited as heck that portions of the state are back playing and being competitive, and we're going to evaluate the best we can with the resources that we have and do that, because we obviously want to keep the best players in state right here at the University of Illinois.
Thank you.
Hey, Brad, Jake talked about you guys approaching your peak here as it gets into early February, middle of February. He talked about like fewer scouting report mistakes being kind of a telltale sign of that. Is there anything else that you see that leads you to believe that peak is on the way?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to execute and not have to, what's the right word I want to use? You want them to see the actions. We've seen enough now. We've seen just about everything that can be thrown at us, and you want them to just make those plays on the fly and not have to do it in a timeout. Do them when there's live game stuff. And you start adding those two things together: scouting report mistakes, personnel, and then execution. And that's where you get to be your best. I mean, you look at, and I told our team this last year, in last year's Iowa game, we turned the ball over 5 times. 5. And that's minimizing turnovers and maximizing your ability to execute. And in games that come down to 1 or 2 possessions, which they all do, this time of year, those are the critical things. So guys understand. Guys are more confident now because they understand, and it's what late season basketball is about.
we talked so much about last year, you guys playing so well heading into the tournament. Does this timeline, are there similarities from where you think you guys are getting now and on February 1st to last year, or how does that look?
Well, I think in some areas we're ahead of where we were last year at February 1st. We'll see how it all plays out. Obviously, every schedule, every team's got something to say with that, and everything's a little bit different. But I like where we're at. I like where we're at from a mental capacity. I like our role identifications becoming very clear. I like the way that we're making fewer mistakes. So all those things are a positive trend right now, and I like that.
Thanks, Fred.
Coach, with the 2 cancellations of the road games and your only road game in January being Northwestern, you haven't left the state since before Christmas. You concerned at all about, loss of a road mentality or anything like that since it's been so long?
No, every home game's almost a road game. There's no artificial stimulation. We treat it like that. You really just walk in and the paint on the floor is a different color. It's really not that drastic. So no, I'm not worried about it at all.
Do the players talk about that at all? Like that, wow, this is different with no crowds on the road. This is, this feels like a home game. Is that a conversation in the locker room?
You'd probably have to ask them. It's not something that we talk about, but we do talk about it from the bench standpoint and from the energy standpoint that, you can kill momentum a lot easier when there's not 15,000 or 19,000 or whatever it is cheering against you. But it's a powerful tool when you have it, and when you don't, it's noticeable. But it's not, again, something that we spend a ton of time talking about.
Thanks.
Hey, Brad. Last time you guys played, I think Franklin had over 20 points. So going into this next matchup, are you putting the responsibility of stopping him primarily on Trent, or how you guys are going to try to slow him down?
No, it'll be a group effort. He's really a good player, and they're doing a lot more with him. He's handling the ball a lot more. They put him in a lot of ball screen actions. Before, he was just in a lot of pin down actions to get shots and opportunities. We lost him a couple times in transition. So you can see Archie's confidence in him has grown, and he's expanded his game as well. So it'll be a steady dose of all of our perimeter guys having to guard him at different times. So. But I know we have to do a better job on him than we did in the first game.
Thanks, Brad.
I know you touched on this before, but when y'all played Indiana in December, what did you learn about their team that you're using in practice to prepare for tomorrow?
Well, Archie's teams are always one of the better defensive teams in the Big Ten, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. And they don't make a ton of mistakes. And you have to have some patience against them. You're not going to get a 1 or 2 pass possession and expect them to break down. They just don't do that. They're very sound that way. So you've got longer possessions, you've got deeper possessions. We talk a lot about early in the clock, which is something that we excel at. But sometimes we've got to be deeper in the clock and still continue to execute and run our patterns and run our plays through that.
Hey, Brad, when we talked with Jake a little earlier, he said that, he wasn't always the guy that maybe made the hustle plays, we call the dirty plays, so to speak. Just what does it take to become that? Maybe when you're used to maybe being more of the guy, either high school, prep, Holy Cross, whatever.
Yeah, here's the great thing about Jake is he's a carefree guy who just wants to win. There's nothing else. It's just the pure sanctity of playing his tail off, playing hard. If he took that approach when he wasn't playing, and he just kept working and getting better. So his mind was never bothered by outside noises, or it wasn't cluttered by not playing. It was just simple. And he plays so hard. And, he makes 2 steals on out of bounds plays. And, he bodied up on an out of bounds play late in the game. And, so it's just the little things that he does. And he's only has 1 speed, and that's all out. And, man, that's paying off for him and us.
And then kind of follow up with what Jim asked, with only video recruiting right now. What has changed maybe in what, is there anything that changed in what you look for, or maybe limitations and maybe how much you can really get to know about a player, his game, et cetera?
No, we're having to dig deep, Scott. There's no question. It's we only see what the camera shows. So you don't see anything else. You don't see how guys interact in timeouts. You don't see how they interact with their teammates when they're subbed out. You don't see a lot of those little things that are very, very important. Yeah. Do we see if they run, jump, shoot a ball? Yes. Sometimes it gets hard to see how they execute out of a timeout, or how they pay attention in a timeout. All the things that are really relevant to recruiting. And then we're having to dig deep into those calls and conversations with people to gather that information, because you don't see it. And if you've seen a young man once and he doesn't play very good, your natural tendency is, well, he's not good enough, or this or that. Well, a lot of times the second or third times you fall in love with them, and so it's much harder to evaluate that aspect than it is in person. And I, that's one of the downsides to video. But again, it's a lot more background work for our staff.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning, Coach. When I was the SID back in the early 90s, Lou Henson's rosters were overwhelmingly dominated by kids from Illinois. And nowadays, it's not so much that way. For recruits, is playing for your state university not the factor that it used to be, or do you see that trend continuing to hold true?
That's a long answer to that question, but I think that 2 things. I think there's great pride in playing for your home institution, and I think that still exists. I think that times have changed so much from the transfer part of things. I think things have changed a great deal from the TV aspect. Back in the day, it was just regional TV. So that was all kids in Illinois saw was Big Ten basketball. Growing up in Kansas, I saw Big 8 basketball. And so your tendency was to go to where you're familiar, and those were the schools you were more familiar with. National games now have opened all that up, and I think that's one of the things that's different. I think one of the things that's changed in the state of Illinois is we've seen a different influx of the prep schools and the schools opening up all over the place, and kids leaving their states, not just Illinois but Ohio or wherever, to go play in some of these basketball schools, so to speak. But so I think it's changed. I think the dynamic is, I still value tremendously the high school basketball in this state, the coaching in this state, how good the talent is in this state. And when it fits our puzzle, I want those pieces, and it is special to play here. I think if you ask Io DeSumo his experience here, he will tell you how great it is. And you talk about, Brandon Lieb, who we haven't seen on the court yet, but a young man who just loves this university and being a part of it. And it was a dream to play here. So that value is there, Mike, and I appreciate that a great deal. And it's always going to be at the heart and soul of our recruiting is in-state kids. And now sometimes we got to go to Arizona or California or Florida to recruit an in-state kid who's from here. But that's the landscape of today's world.
And then you have the opportunity sometimes to re-recruit because of the transfer portal and grad transfers. So, that it kind of, you've already established a relationship and you can kind of take advantage of that in some ways.
Yeah, and I'm not. I think it's really important, especially as we move forward, and what will be some different times with the recruiting and transfer rules, and as they change, and sometimes when it doesn't work, it's not always a bad thing. And when kids want to transfer back, usually they do want to transfer closer to home, and they do want to transfer where they have some familiarity and know. And so it's an option that's definitely out there. And again, I've said this many times, it's the best high school basketball in the country, and we'd be foolish to not continue to want to take advantage of it and take great pride in our young athletes in this state. And I'm just glad they're back playing again in most parts of the state.
Thanks for your time.
Brad, in terms of Jake, when you were evaluating him as a transfer and you're watching him play in a Princeton style, and they were, I think, 336 and 346 in tempo under Bill, what led you to believe, and your staff believe, that Jake can play the way we want to play and play as fast as we want to play? And how big was his sit-out year in terms of getting him used to how you guys want to play?
Yeah, when we mentioned the term run, he didn't know what that was. I think that, but there was so much value in him playing for Bill and playing for that system. You saw his cutting. I'm a big fan of cutting. He's a very, very good passer. He was a streaky shooter, but he found so many other ways to score that he didn't just have to dial in and focus on shooting. And we thought a year off in the system. We knew a year with Fletch would help him. But the year off has helped him with his jump shot immensely. Jake is always in the gym. He's an unbelievable worker. He's a smart young man. So all the pieces we just kept checking boxes, and loved his motor. He's got versatility, being able to play the three, being able to play the four, and it just checked all the boxes. So it was a perfect fit, and actually, even though they played a little slower, Bill's system was a big sell for us because of the execution piece and the passing and the cutting that he had to play with.
I'm remembering the game against Penn State where it just seemed like he knew exactly where to go in that zone and get you guys organized and knew exactly where the ball needed to go. Is that part of, going through Bill's system? And is the cliche work that if you can work in that system, you can pretty much work in anyone?
Yeah, it's a feel, it's an instinct. And Jake's got a really good basketball IQ. And again, he plays with just such a clear mind, and it's simple. It's just all on reads. That's a read-based offense. We're not as read-based now as we used to be, but they're great opportunities for it. And he's a guy that just capitalizes on all of those. And you put him in a zone, and he's pretty lethal.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, I think that's everything on chat. Anything else?
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.